My name is Jason King. I am Dean of the Thornton School and producer of this. Yeah, I'll take the applause. Come on, let's keep it going. Producer of this series. One of the very first things that I did after receiving the call confirming my new role as Dean, I've been in the job now 14 months. Before the ink on my contract was even dry, I reached out to Quincy Jones' office. And the goal for me was to explore potential collaborations here at USC. So for those who are less familiar, and I can't imagine anybody in this room is less familiar, but I'm going to say it anyway. Quincy Jones is one of the greatest masters of 20th and 21st century music. His unprecedented and prodigious career spans roles as a musician, producer, songwriter, composer, working in genres as diverse as classical, jazz, pop, R&B, and beyond. From his work in classical with figures like Nadia Boulanger, Olivia Messiaen, to the jazz he made with artists from Basie to Sarah Vaughan, to Dinah Washington, to Frank Sinatra, to Peggy Lee, to name just a few, to his top flight work in pop music, including everything from Leslie Gore's It's My Party, to film scores like In Cold Blood, The Pawnbroker, TV compositions like Roots, films like The Wiz, Color Purple. Of course, he was the first African American to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song. To his own award-winning albums, including so many, Body Heat, The Dude, Back on the Block. His singular producing of that triumvirate of Michael Jackson's landmark albums, Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad, and the top-selling We Are the World, to his founding of Vibe magazine in the 1990s, and we are literally just scratching the surface. Quincy Jones' influence is monumental, and his contributions don't just stop in music, they extend into philanthropy and investment. He is a true and steadfast supporter of the arts, with more than 79 Grammy nominations, 28 wins, 2013 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. The accolades continue to accumulate. This year, he will receive a special Academy Award to add to his existing Academy Humanitarian Award and his 7 Oscar nominations. My goal is to make the Thornton School of Music the unrivaled leader in music education anywhere in the world. And I believe it's our privilege and our responsibility to study Quincy Jones, this towering figure in American music. And a quintessential icon of Los Angeles' musical heritage as well. Many of you have read interviews or seen interviews with Quincy Jones. In one particular interview, the reporter asked, do you lament the fact that in music there are so many silos between genres like jazz, rock, and pop? And Quincy Jones responds in a way that he often does if you've read his responses in interviews. He says, from day one, we knew how to play every kind of music. Sousa, Debussy, at bar mitzvahs, rhythm and blues, everything. God gave us 12 notes, and Bach, Brahms, Beethoven, Bo Diddley, Basie, Bird all use the same 12 notes. It's good he can use those alliterations too, the B's. That's just great. He goes on to say, the best gift I ever had in my life was one of the first television productions I did. Duke Ellington, We Love You Madly. Duke gave me a picture of him and he signed it. May you be the one to decategorize American music. Most top-tier music schools are traditionally divided by genre. Classical, what used to be called serious music, over here. Jazz department over here. If they have a pop department, over here. One of my goals as dean is to do away with the silos and divisions that characterize schools like the Thornton School. Those divisions between genres and idioms and styles like classical and jazz and pop and beyond. And as dean, I'm aiming to break down those silos and to eliminate those divisions. Rather than separating classical and jazz and pop and other genres, I envision a school where those boundaries dissolve, allowing our students to explore a larger, greater creative sandbox. I want them to have the freedom to pursue their own musical journeys without the constraints of genres, external pressures like label pressures, industry pressures, and other sorts of externally imposed pressures. I want them to foster their own artistic expression and define professional success on their own terms. I want to cultivate students who share Quincy Jones' broad range of musical and cultural competencies. They can be fluent in a variety of styles. Why just limit yourself to one? Jazz, pop, classical, rock, gospel, flamenco, hip-hop, electronic music, Afrobeats. Probably name 15 more right now. In many ways, Quincy Jones is the embodiment of this vision, much like how he picked up the baton from Duke Ellington, who I would argue is the greatest original American composer in the history of music. Quincy Jones today stands as the living symbol of what we aim to instill in our students, the pursuit of excellence, artistic freedom, and a pluralistic approach to music. No figure, in my mind, is more deserving of celebration than Quincy Jones. He has not only decategorized American music, but has done so with skyscraping virtuosity and excellence across all genres. While there are many schools with classes devoted to Beethoven and the Beatles and other deserving paragons of excellence, to my knowledge, no university music program has truly given Quincy Jones the recognition he truly deserves, and that is the reason for this series. We hope to change that. We're offering an unprecedented, long-form, deep dive into the life and work of one of the greatest figures in music history at a major American institution, Thornton School of Music and USC. And while we may be the first to undertake such a durational tribute to a figure like Quincy Jones, I really do hope that we will not be the last. And since I feel like I'm speaking to a room of friends, I don't know if I am, but I feel the energy, I feel more. Let me put this idea out into the universe in the spirit of what everybody today on social media seems to be calling manifesting. But I believe that Los Angeles should one day have a university performing arts center and a venue with Quincy Jones' name on it.
Oh.
And it's my hope.
Okay.
It's my hope that the driver for that dream to become a reality. Tonight is only the first event in a series celebrating Quincy Jones. About a month from now, on October 23rd, see who's up there. We are hosting a public masterclass with none other than the legendary vocalist Patty Austin. Don't make me start singing How Do You Keep the Music Playing, Bet You Wouldn't Hurt Me, Baby Come to Me, you know, this goes on and on.
Baby Come to Me.
It will be moderated by Thornton Sheriff Pop Performance Lyndia Johnson and Associate Professor of Jazz Studies Luciana Souza. So I hope to see you there. What a rare opportunity to come to something like that. And the same day, that night, we have an all-star panel for In Tune with Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones is a highly collaborative, interdependent music maker who worked with such a constellation of amazing talents throughout his career. And we're focused just on a relatively small cadre of some of the most important collaborators in his work in the 70s, 80s, and 90s and beyond. That will include Patty Austin, Saida Garrett, the legendary performer and co-writer of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, among the songs. Paul Jackson Jr., USC Thornton faculty, masterful guitar player, whose riffs have shaped many of Quincy Jones' hits. David Paik, the brilliant keyboardist and songwriter known for his work with Toto. Greg Phillinganes, the versatile keyboardist and arranger. Yeah, I like this. Come on with the applause. He played a pivotal role in so many Quincy Jones projects. And many more, including the great Mervyn Warren, who's with us tonight.
Screenshot.
Producer, arranger. Speaking of Mervyn, November 21st, our next event in the series.
Screenshot.
Every month you can celebrate Quincy Jones here. The Making of Handel's Messiah, a soulful celebration. So in 1992, Mervyn, five-time Grammy Award-winning composer, arranger, and original member of Take Six, spearheaded a soulful rendition of Handel's Messiah. How many people heard that album, remember that album? Yes, and if you haven't, this is your opportunity to come. We're going to do a close listening, which means basically everybody in the same room listening to this album at the same time. Remember when we used to do that? Going through the entire album, and then we'll have a panel featuring Mervyn along with some special guests, which I think I can announce tonight for the first time. Claude McKnight from Take Six, Tevin Campbell will be with us.
Woo, Tevin.
As well. That panel will be co-moderated by Dr. Tran Sparks, the chair of our choral and sacred music program. March 14th, moving to March, so you have some time, holiday, December, January, February. March 14th, Quincy's birthday. The USC Thornton Symphony will honor Quincy Jones with a special evening dedicated to his film and TV compositions. If you've not seen the symphony before, you must. It's absolutely incredible. The program will feature selections from scores like Roots and Color Purple, and will be under the direction of legendary conducting chair Larry Livingston. And then the next day, March 15th, we close this year's celebration with an event on Vibe Magazine, which is celebrating and bringing together some of the original music writers, critics, and editors from the early days of Vibe. Of course, a publication that Quincy Jones, as I mentioned before, founded. And they'll discuss their experiences at the magazine and its legacy. That will be in conjunction with the 2025 Pop Conference that we host here at USC. So, I say all that because I hope to see you back, and please tell a friend. I'm going to briefly pass the mic to two of my colleagues. Jason Goldman first, who is the chair of the jazz department here at the Thornton School, himself a multi-platinum selling record producer, songwriter, composer, arranger. I wanted to say a few words about our jazz program in connection to Quincy and Duke Ellington. Welcome up, Jason Bateman.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. While most know Quincy Jones as a legendary pop music producer and icon, who still holds the crown, by the way, for producing the biggest pop album of all time, and Michael Jackson's Thriller back in 1982, at his core, Quincy is a jazz musician. He began his career like most jazz musicians, playing, in his case the trumpet, composing, arranging, playing gigs. Quincy has worked with some of the most incredible musicians of all time, as we heard. And while there are far too many names, people to name here, he's literally helped develop two of the greatest talents in the history of music, and that being Michael Jackson and Frank
Eventbrite.
Sinatra.
Follow them on Eventbrite.
Duke Ellington is one of the most prolific jazz musicians, composers, and arrangers in the history of jazz music. Duke pushed the limits of what the big band can do. From traditional hard swinging music to music that infused jazz with Latin and African genres of music, to scoring films exclusively featuring jazz music, Duke was always pushing for new sounds. Both of these jazz musicians are vital not only to jazz, but to music as a whole. They pushed the boundaries, cross genres, and used their jazz sensibilities and creativity to influence music in ways most of us can only dream of. I have the good fortune of leading the USC Thornton Jazz Studies program, and I can tell you, as a professor who's been here teaching our department for over 22 years, both Ellington and Quincy